Naila, can you hear me now? Okay, Alhamdulillah. Right, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. I'm really sorry about that. Um, Now I will start. Na'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I sincerely apologize for what's happened. I don't know what it was, but alhamdulillah, we'll make a start right now. I just want to thank you for being patient with me, giving me your time, and I hope you've got your notepads ready, papers, iPads, whatever technology you're using to do this for this webinar. Now, what I wanted to, this webinar is for mothers or mothers to be. Now, and it's not for brothers. So I just want to make that very clear. And inshallah, we will make a start now. Now, I pray at the end of the session, you would have benefited a lot. I'm going to walk you through some of the tips on how to be a great mom and on how to become a mother who understands her various roles in life and balances them well, and how to manage your life to achieve the work-life balance that you've always wanted. And you know, how you can be a vibrant mom, satisfying all the roles in your life at the moment, whether it's being you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a daughter, all of those things. I know we all do get overwhelmed by them. Now, this webinar will be a new opportunity for you to take your advice, wisdom, and life experiences that you've already got, your values and your beliefs, and to put them all together in making you a great leader for your homes. Because what is really, really, really important is you being a leader. Now, some of us sometimes forget that although we're a mom, we are a great leader. And inshallah, we're doing one of the greatest roles ever. And we know that. So tonight, I'll be teaching you some ways you can take what you already know, I would say, and put it into a meaningful plan, and so that you can use this to create a warm and safe environment for yourself and your family. We will be talking about practical solutions. I'm not a sheikh, so I wouldn't be talking about the Quranic rules and all that, the fiqh stuff. I won't be doing that. But yes, it is from an Islamic point of view, but it's more practical. And I also want to say before we jump in is that you are your child's best expert. There is no parenting expert. From all what I've studied and all the psychology I've read about child development, the only being that knows your child more than you do is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other than that, nobody knows your child better than you do. Right. And I also want to say something as well, and to make sure you know that we do not own these children. They've been given to us as a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we need to look after them. That is our role. We need to look after them and guide them through life. And inshallah, they will turn out to be productive, healthy, confident Muslims that will take this ummah forward. I'll tell you a bit about my background and how I came into motherhood and how this became a very passionate topic to me. Right. Back in 2005, I became a single parent, and this was through divorce. I had 3 kids under the age of 10, and I just didn't know what to do. I had 3 under 10 and 1 at the age of 14. And as you can imagine, it was a big struggle for me. Juggling a full-time job with kids, taking them to school clubs, rushing to work, having to, to perform salat, having to cook, do all sorts of things, as you can imagine. Life was such a big struggle for me. And also, being stereotyped by the society, it was like, how on earth are you going to look after these kids on your own? And this is when I started going out to every course I could go to on parenting. I had to read all the books I could find. I did lots of things. And because I was trying to enhance my learning and just find out what I could do to be a great mom. Now, by this time, I was already on about 13 types of medication. And my hair was falling out. And these were like falling out in chunks. And I could hardly think straight. Did not know whether I was coming or whether I was going. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. I would walk past my home so many times, not realizing it, then look back and think, where have I landed? So there was just one Sunday morning, I just sat there with my laptop. Then I stumbled across a Muslim life coach, and her name is Hiba Sharif. After a few sessions with Hiba, I then realized that this was something really good, because my life had a new beginning. Things started to make sense for me. I could prioritize. I was not as overwhelmed as I was before. I could manage my workload and I could manage my family. And I was quite pleased where I was. And I thought this is going to be useful for so many sisters, but because we didn't have something like that in the society. And it took me a long time to get to that position. So then I thought, I'm going to go and study it. And the rest is history, basically. So this led me to, I went over to Canada to study on how to become a Muslim life coach. And then I focused on developing practical solutions and techniques on how to make women who find themselves in my position great mom, and how to master motherhood from the point of Islam and also from the secular world as well, because we live here. So alhamdulillah, that was my story, and that's what brought me to here. Now, I had a couple of clients that I just want to briefly tell you about, because although it took me almost 10 years to get to where I am today, it doesn't need to take us that long to get there. So I just thought I'll just quickly share with you 2 case studies that, I worked with 2 sisters, and alhamdulillah, they saw great effort. One of them is Jannah. I've obviously changed the name. She was a client of mine. She was a single mother. She came to me with a number of issues. The first thing she said to me is, can I give these children away? And I'm thinking, why do you want to give your children away? And she just said to me, I can't cope anymore. She said, life is just not easy. It's just like Allah has forgotten me. I'm so disorganized, tired. I don't even know where my car keys are anymore. I just don't know what to do anymore. So, and I said to her, stop, because this is the one thing. When we're getting overwhelmed, when we just don't know where we are, what we're doing anymore, we just need to stop. Stop, slow down, and think. And once we do this, this is the first thing that pushes us in the position. It puts us in the position where we start reevaluating and analyzing where we are and what we need to do. So, and when all of this was happening to her, she started writing, because I got her to develop a plan. And my system is to come up with a plan. This is the first thing we do. So after she stopped, she slowed down, we started with this plan. And in this plan, we started introducing some boundaries, and we'll talk about those later. She introduced some boundaries, and she also introduced some rules into the home. She created a small team. So now her and the kids, they were able to work together, and that was much fun. She was no more shouting, yelling at her kids, because they now had responsibility and ownership. And the most important thing was she was always able to find her keys now, and she would always walk out with a smile, and she was not rushing anymore. She's now well organized. She has a diary system in place, and she's able to keep up her spiritual duties. And each time I see her, she looks so good. And you know what, sisters? She has some spare time. Just imagine that. Spare time. She's got some spare time to do things she would love to do that she couldn't do before. Another client of mine, Amin, she's a working mom with 5 children. She never had any time to do anything as well. She was a mother looking after the husband, looking after the in-laws, and the list is never ending, sorry. She couldn't keep to a schedule. Sometimes she would take the children to school late. Sometimes she's feeding them in the car park. Sometimes they're doing their homework in the car park. She was just chasing her tail. The poor kids would go to school with breakfast plastered all over their face. They weren't kept. And it was she just couldn't juggle everything in her life. Then again, I took her through my system, my plan. And this is what we did. We worked a lot on this. And again, I don't want to spend, because I know we've lost time already. So I'll just quickly say a few things, what she was able to do. What she was able to do after I had sessions with her was she was able to wake up and do her tahajjud. And we started working together on how she could come up with a resolution plan where she's getting all her home activities in order. She was no more drained and she wasn't burnt out anymore. She was happy and the children were happy, because if mom isn't happy, the children aren't going to be happy either. And she has such an amazing life now. And what she learned was that we sacrifice a lot for our children. And I know we all do this because we just want the best for our children. But sometimes we have to learn that when we sacrifice so much, it is harmful to our children. And she also learned how to do things smarter. She got a new job and she could not even be any happier. Now, just before I move on, I just want to mention a few myths. Because, and why I say myths, I've largely, most of my life, I've been more of a single parent than a married mother or, in a relationship. Although I've been married for about 11, 12 years of my life, but most of it I was a single parent. Now, there's lots of myths out there because I speak to lots of single sisters. And if there are any single sisters on this call, this webinar, I just want you to reassure you that being a single parent is not an illness. Being a single parent does not stop you raising productive kids, does not mean that you're not going to produce excellent children. You just have to work a bit harder. Yes, I agree that a job of two persons has now become one, but that does not mean you still can't get through. And I've done it, and I know lots of sisters who have done it. And we should also remember that Allah does not burden us with what we cannot bear. The society does stereotype, but let's look beyond that and then just put our trust in Allah and we can get through it. We look at the great imams, we look at most of our great imams, they were raised by their mothers. There's so many stories. I'm not going to go into those now, but I will go into those later in my course. Many imams, Imam Bukhari, we know his mother. Most of them, Imam Malik, his mother. So at the end of the day, look how these men turned out. So being a single mom, I'd like to repeat, is not an illness, and then you can get through. And neither is it too late to jump in wherever you are, because some mothers come up to me and say, right, that's it, I've messed everything up. My children are ruined for life. No, they are not. You just need to do something about it now. Wherever you are, just start. Forget about the past and just focus on the now and how you're going to raise these children to be very confident, have good values and beliefs. Now, my system is going to, it's a system of I've got about 7 to 10 steps, which I usually go through with people. I'm not going to discuss most of those now, but I'm going to discuss some because this system is very, very useful, introducing us on how we, it introduces us into how we can focus on what is important and how we can prioritize things in our life. I also call it a model of my world, and it's also a model of the world of other women that I dealt with. It is also some people call it their habits, some people call it their tips on how they can adapt a wonderful life and how, we will discuss now how it's actually impacted them and how it's really worked for them. So the very first one that I'd like to start off with is to say, our first and primary role is to be a servant of Allah. Looking into our relationship with Allah is really, really important. I think this is where most of us fall down. Because when we hit problems, Allah is the last being that we go to with our problems. We start going everywhere else. Now, what is very, very important is for us to develop our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He told us that He created men and jinn for us to worship Him. That is our primary role. And we need to make sure that is in order. Imagine as a mother, if you're missing your salah, what are you teaching your children? Imagine as a mother, you're not praying your salah on time. Imagine as a mother, you're combining all your salah. What are you teaching your children? And we know that children don't learn by listening. They learn by watching us and they imitate us a lot, especially the younger ones. And so do the older ones. They turn around and say, I want to be like my mum. And sometimes they don't voice this to us. So we just need to be really, really careful. So one of the ways of us being a servant of Allah is I use this thing which I call the Prophet Prophet's way of achieving balance. And this is how he achieved life balance. In one of the hadith, it says he spent a third of his time, he apportioned that to Allah and his spiritual duties. And we should do that. So he was able to develop himself spiritually and he had a strong connection with Allah. And I don't need to say much about that. We all know what he did about that. He spent a third of his time for his families and friends. Now, we can never be as busy as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and I'm sure you would agree with me on this. And just imagine it, he had such a huge job because not only was he spreading dawah within Mecca, he had to go to wars. He was, dealing with and negotiating with other countries. And we still know that he had time to do his house chores. We know he had time to mend his own clothes. cook his own food. He does things by himself, despite he had his wife. And it also says he spent a quarter of his time doing his business and his direct activities. And he also spent a third of his time for himself. One thing most of us moms don't have is me time. And that is because we sacrifice all our time for everybody else. And at the end of the day, there is nothing left for us. Now, sometimes people have a go at me when I say you need to be selfish and look after yourself first. And it goes back to the ayah of the Quran when Allah says to us that save yourself and your family from the hellfire. Allah talks about you saving yourself first before he talks about the children or he talks about the family. And we know that's what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did. So, my dear sisters, I'd like to say to you that, our biggest challenge is balancing work, life, and our spiritual development. Sometimes is our relationship with Allah. Because I know sometimes you put something on the cooker, we're cooking, you're probably about to go into ruku or sujood, and then you think, oh my God, this thing is burning. We lose focus, we lose concentration. Or probably the kid is crawling down the stairs, something happens. And we can avoid most of these if we plan. And if we plan our day around our salah, that will be more beneficial for us than anything else. And we know that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us that the salah was the coolness of his eyes. Let me and you make it ours. Do you know what I usually say is when we plan our time around salah, do you know sometimes when we say we don't have me time, if you just do this, just take one day, plan it around your salah, fit everything else within your salah times, because you will find that break that you have, that you're re-energizing, you're rejuvenating yourself, you have that connection with Allah, you will feel on top of this world by the time you're done. And this will make it so easy for you to be able to cope with the challenges that motherhood throws at you. One thing about motherhood, like you all know, and I say we should feel privileged as mothers. Allah appointed us to this position. We didn't appoint ourselves. And at the end of the day, he is going to pay us a salary. And again, I always say we should be really proud of ourselves in a humble way. And I say in a humble way because Allah gave you the job. He gave me the job, and he's going to reward us at the end of the day. And I pray that he rewards you and me at the end of the day, not only with a salary, as I usually say, but also with a bonus, to say that we've done a brilliant job. And I know most of you moms are doing a brilliant job. It would be easy if these children came with an A to Z or a manual. And it would be more easier if all the children were the same, but they're not. And this is another thing that we've lost in motherhood, which I call nurture by nature. We're kind of losing that natural instinct to be a mum. I grew up largely in Africa, and the mothers always trusted their instincts. If a child is crying, we, the mother, would know that this child is either hungry, the child needs a nappy change, or there's just something wrong. Something's wrong with your child, you would know. Nobody else would know, but you would know. But we are now losing some of that because we're getting super nanny, whatever nanny, telling us that our child has to be fed 2 or 3 times a day. Your child has to have this amount of food. Your child has to be treated in this way. And then when the child starts reacting to this because you are not aligning with the child, then you begin to get frustrated yourself that this child is not listening to me, or I just can't seem to build a rapport with this child. Trust your instincts, and that's what I would say to you, no matter how your children are. Do not lose that natural instinct. I think we need to start bringing it back. Now, another important thing for us to do, mums, is I always say that parenting is ABC. And I know I say that. Parenting can be difficult and it can be fun. It can be whatever we want it to be. And I pray that on the day of judgment, when Allah asks your children and my children that did these women do the job that I asked them to do, they are able to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, yes, they did. And they made us into the great human beings that we are today, because they will testify against us. And that for me sometimes is the scary bit. And the scary bit for most of the mothers that I talk to is we do not know. We try and do things. We don't have the answer. We've got no one to confirm that what we're doing is right. We just go with our instincts and what we see around us and what we've learned from other people and pray to Allah that that is right. One thing about parenting, I say parenting is about you. It is not about the child. It's about your attitude, your character that you bring to parenting. If you are shouting at your children all the time, now I'm no saint. I used to do this a lot. And I know, and I always check in with my children. I can safely say for probably about over a year now, I haven't shouted or yelled or, I might raise my voice every now and then because I'm a human being. So I am not fault, I will make those mistakes, but they're very, very minimal. And we can all achieve that. And there's so much calm and peace. And how did I do that? I said a few minutes ago that parenting is ABC. A stands for always, B is be, C consistent. Always be consistent. And remember, Allah loves what is small and consistent. And what I'm saying this is you need to separate the behavior from the child when the child does something, right? Because I said it's all about us and our attitude. When a child does something, now let's take a teenager, for instance, because at the moment I've got about 3 of them. And you're speaking to them, but let's assume they roll their eyes at you. You just think, oh, this child is disrespecting me. This child hates me. This child is so disrespectful after I spent all this time on you. Is this how you pay me back? It's nothing to, they've got nothing against you. It's just nothing. It's not about you. That is how they are. And if we look at each development stage of a child, they are doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing their job. Their job is to frustrate us and to press our buttons. And we have to turn this around into a fun way. I see children as the greatest negotiators you can ever come across. You know what? If your child wants something, it will be, Mom, I love you. Mom, can I make you some tea? Do you want a glass of orange juice? Obviously, you know something is coming up. And then you negotiate with them and you discuss with them. You might not give it, and you need to be firm and authoritative. I say you need to be firm, but make sure you achieve a balance. I know there's different types of parenting styles that the specialists have come up with. Some of them are where the parent, all they do is just issue commands and tell the child, you do this because I tell you to do so. If the child says, why? It's like, don't question me, just do what I've told you to do. Some of us might have grown up in that kind of environment. During that time, it was suited to the environment. But a child now would ask you, why am I supposed to do certain things? So the attitude we should adopt with the children nowadays is to engage them. As I'm not saying don't give instructions or commands, but let's do it in a very nice way. So engage them, explain to them why you're asking them to do something. If you say to them, go and clean the kitchen, just go and wipe down the worktop, it might be, but why do I have to do that? Can't someone else do that? Then you will have to explain to them, I'm afraid, that about keeping the home tidy. Cleanliness is important. Cleanliness is half of our faith. And then this brings me on to creating a team. When I say creating a team, with your children, no matter how small they are, even starting from the age of 2, a child can fold, they can handle a dustpan, they can do things, and they would love doing it. So what you would need to do is, when as a child from 2 up into teenage or whatever, sometimes we do have extended childhood, I say, when we have people in their 20s still living at home. Whatever the circumstances are that's warranted that, we don't know. But we can get all our children together no matter what age they are. Create a team. Share the housework, the chores amongst everybody. And probably spend 10 or 15 minutes or half an hour just doing all the chores together. Divide it up amongst everyone and just do it all together at the same time. It will be a fun activity. Nobody will get frustrated or bored about it, but it has to be done. It's a job that has to be done. Some people reward their children for it. I personally don't believe in rewarding a child for doing the housework because it's something that has to be done. And I think we're sending wrong messages if we do that. But then again, that is my belief. Another thing that we need to do with our children is we need to communicate. And when we communicate in a language that they understand. We speak to them, we come down to their level. If you want to speak to a small child, just kneel down, make sure you're at the same eye level with them, because then they will feel a sense of belonging and significance, because they love to feel significant. They love to feel that I'm being valued. Because a child, after their physical needs have been met, and this I mean by shelter, food, clothing, and their environment is safe, once they know that my parents have provided me with a safe environment, Because, sometimes they do things at home that they won't do when they're out there. When people say these children are as nice as pie, but at home, they're giving you a lot of trouble. They can do that because they feel free in this environment that they live in, and they know they can do whatever they want. I'm saying within boundaries, within normal, but they should be able to leave them to play around with it and to do whatever they want to do because they feel free at home. Once they've got those, they would love to have that sense of love, connection, and they would want a sense of belonging. And now, just to quickly, I just want to jump over to something else. With the children, you need to know, their position in the family is very important as well. And I studied this recently, and I looked into it, and I've read quite a lot about it, that, the first child is always a child that ends up with lots of responsibility. They even spoiled sometimes, and sometimes they seem to be the child that is loved the most, because they're the first child. The middle child tends to play up a lot because they seem to think they're neglected, they're not significant, they're just being left alone. And the last child always gets lots and lots of attention because they play up a lot. And for some reason, the middle one gets ignored. And most of the research shows that. So I just want to point out, if we have that order, we need to check the birth orders and just pay attention to that. It might not be occurring in your family, but just check that and see how it's affecting all of your children. Because sometimes you need to look for the hidden messages. And what's really important for us is most of what the children do not say. Those are the messages you need to look for, especially if you've got older children. You have to read and interpret what they're saying, because sometimes they don't come out with it all. And this is where I say, when they get older, you have to start connecting with them. You not become their friend, but in a way, you befriend them. You start respecting them. Ask for their opinions about things. Now, if you want your child to trust you, you need to win their trust first. Now, by doing that, you can share a problem with them. But, I've got something, but do it within reason. And you do it, make sure the child is at the appropriate level of whatever issue you want to discuss. Don't burden them. We don't want to put our baggages on our children, no. But when they know that my mom has that kind of issue and she's been able to share that with me, they feel quite happy about that. And they will begin to share with you. Because if we don't give them the attention, we don't communicate with them, we don't listen, we're not attentive, they will go out there and get it somewhere else. And the scary thing is they don't even need to leave the door anymore. They do it on the internet, technology. Now, this brings me on to technology. When we're talking about technology, even myself, up until recent, we complain a lot because the children it just takes time away from them. And it also takes time away from us as adults. If we're not careful, we can spend all day on social media. It takes up everybody's time. We need to make sure that we control technology. Technology serves us. We don't serve technology. Now, technology is here to stay. We're not going to get rid of it. But what we need to do is to control what our children do with the technology. And we need to educate them and enlighten them. In order to do that, we need to educate ourselves first. What is acceptable? All the internets now, they have these safe packages where we can put in controls to block out content that's inappropriate, that we don't want them to see. And we can also schedule times. I think some computers, you can schedule a time on there where they can be on it for an hour or 2 hours. And make sure that you have a communal computer or so. Don't let every child have a computer and they sit in their own room and you don't know what's going on. But the fact is, technology is here to stay. And then we have to channel it and make sure it works for us and our children in the appropriate way. Because even if we take it away from them, when they go to school, they'll still get it one way or the other. And and I know, if we're deprived of something, we're told that we can't have something, we're more than likely not to do it. Yeah, we would like to do it because we've been told not to do it. Then we will go out and do it. But if we know we're allowed to do it, but within reason, then they'll probably most likely not play up. Now, with my children, for instance, if they got homework to do, I take their phones off them. If I'm not happy with most of what they're doing, I take the phone with me to work and they don't get it till I get back. but they know the consequences of their actions, and this is what we need to do. Now, another thing for us to do is discipline. And when I say discipline, it is about tarbiyah, we say in Islam, and this is about nurturing. And discipline doesn't mean like we punish them all the time, because that doesn't work. You're punishing a child all the time, not explaining to them what they have done, then they probably would rely on a lot. They probably won't confide in us when things are going wrong. So what I suggest we do is I think tarbiyah, I would say this is the nurturing Islamic way, and the iman, they go hand in hand. Now, and how do we do this? We do this by connecting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that tarbiyah is the moral upbringing. And it's quite easy. We connect our children to Allah. If my children want anything, I'll say it's good asking me, but do your salah, do 2 rak'ah, go and speak to Allah, ask him to provide mom with the means for you to get what you want. And if you get it, Allah willed it, and if you didn't, he didn't will it. So then the child knows that you and I, we are all responsible to Allah at the end of the day, and we're their appointed guardian. And by doing this, I think half of our journey or our challenges will be resolved. Because when we're not there, if we've connected a child to Allah, then the child would know that I need to be fearful, because Allah is always watching me. So whether mom's got a back turned, I told them that Allah's got a CCTV camera that never dies. It works 24/7. So the child becomes more conscious of Allah, and also it introduces to them a very nice moral upbringing as well. And it's also crucial for us to understand the current environment, the society, and the culture that envelopes our children, especially what goes on at school, what goes on in the community when they go to the park. What children are they relating to? Because sometimes we turn a blind eye, and I really don't think we should be doing that. Sometimes we want to impose our culture in them. In one of my courses, I will talk to you about the 21 factors that Ali mentioned. And remember, if Ali radiallahu anhu was talking about those 21 factors during his time, what about ours? So we cannot impose our cultural background on our children, and some of us do that. So it's very important for us to take time to understand the culture that our children are growing up in. We really need to do this, and I will stress this, really need to do this. Understand the dynamics of the society that you live in. Understand what's going on in school. Go and find out what they're teaching them, because may Allah save us from all the things that they're teaching our children. One thing that, and I will be a bit blunt about this, is we tend as Muslims to shy away from teaching our children about sex education, but they do it for us. And if we don't do it, they will do it, and they will teach our children things that are not right. So can we look it up? It's there in our deen. There's nothing to shy away from. And we need to do that job first before they get to our children. So then our children will be able to filter out what is appropriate and what is not. But if that's the first piece of advice they get, that's what's going to be in their head. So we really need to be careful and work out how we're going to resolve these issues that we are facing in the community nowadays. And may Allah help us in this role as a mother. Now, I usually talk about parenting the prophets when I'm just going to mention the points. I'm not going to go into it for time because I know it's going to be time for Maghrib soon, and we have lost a bit of time. I think 3 things that we really, really need to cultivate in order to bring our children up. And this is knowledge, and tarbiyah is the moral upbringing, and iman. Again, we've got the 7 pillars of faith, we've got the 5 pillars of Islam. We connect our children to Allah and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm not saying we're 100% sorted, but we're pretty much will be about 80% sorted if we can do this. Those 3 things I've just mentioned, if we can connect our children to those, we can do that. But you and I have to do that first. We have to do that. And how do we do that? We need to discover ourselves. We need to discover our identity, because some of us are in denial as it is. And what we don't have, we can't give. So if you don't have it, you can't give it. So first we need to get, I know some of us go out a lot, learn this knowledge, and we have to pass it on to our children. The Prophet Muhammad said, the best of teachers is the one who learns, the best of you is the one who learns something and he teaches it. So for us, what we need to do is, first thing is nurturing our children. These are some of the things that I've come up, that I've noticed on the stories of the prophets that I've read. And I just quickly share a few with you. They nurture their children. Remember Yusuf alayhi salam, when he had an issue, where did he go? He went to his dear beloved father. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was told to slaughter Ismail, he didn't go to him and say, look, Allah's asked me to slaughter your throat, but I'm cutting you up. No, he didn't. He asked him, what do you think? And this is what we need to do with our teenagers. Sibling rivalry, we get a lot of that. And I will do another webinar on that, inshallah. That again, we can see this in Yusuf alayhi salam. Look how he dealt with his 12 children. Lots of patience. But he was telling his son, Yusuf, when these things happen, when your brothers start doing things to you, it is not them, it is shaitan. And that's how he was able to forgive. And, he was able to forgive his brothers. And look, they had a happy ending. And as far as we know, the story in the Quran. Positive parenting. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that the way he dealt with things was a positive attitude. There was not a lot of negativity there, no. And he did a lot of nurturing as well. And he gave unconditional love. One thing we have to do is give unconditional love and be compassionate to our children. Children need to feel loved. They need to be connected. They need to know that even if they've got things wrong, if our child does something, probably they go out and they come back late. And then we say to them that I've warned you, you know the consequences of you going out late. Then that means for the next 2 weeks, you're not going out. And the child goes, that's not fair. This is this. You always do this to me. No, we will impose the consequence, but we will tell them that I love you. And the child knows that my parents love me. We need to make sure the child knows no matter what they do, no matter the consequences of whatever action they do, that we love them unconditionally. It is very, very important. And what's very important is we show active listening. Because some of us are on the telephone, the moment the child comes up, because, Mom, can I have this? And then we say, oh, just do this and get out of my way. Just want the child out of our way. And then later on, when you're off the phone, it's like, who asked you to eat that? Who asked you to drink that? But it'd be like, but I asked you, Mom. And the children tend to play up when we get on the phone, because what they see, and what probably you and I don't know, is they see the way we communicate, the way we relate, the rapport we build with other people. But we don't do the same with them. So they think, right, I'm going to disturb her. She can't give it to me. She's not giving it to this person either. And they usually play up a lot. This also leads me on to something that I call mum and me time. With all your children, depending on how many you've got. With me, I say to my kids, you've got 10 minutes with me, just you and me one-on-one every day. Sometimes they use the time, sometimes they don't. And again, it's just for them to feel that affection and to know that mom cares about me. And it also gives them time to offload. Another benchmark for you is when your children come back to school, from school, do they have verbal diarrhea? Because mine do. As soon as I walk in through the door, Mom, this happened at school today. That happened at school today. Oh, my friend did this to me. Oh, you won't believe what happened. It is really nice if they're doing that. Trust me. Just listen if you don't want to respond. But active listening is very, very, very important, because they might ask you a question just to check if you're listening. So if your children are able to come back and tell you what's going on, even with their friends, even the names of their friends, then you're on a good level with your children. Lots of love, hugs and kisses. Some children don't like it, some do. Just give it to them. Because at the end of the day, when we grow old, we would want our children to show us compassion and empathy. Some people cannot even open their mouths to say they love their parents. Well, they do, but they've never been brought up in that way and manner. But we should be able to say that. We should show empathy to our children, and we should have a vision for them as well. Because most of the great imams we know, Imam Shafi, Imam Bukhari, Imam Malik, those we know their mothers had visions for them. That's why they turned out to be who they were. We know Imam Malik used to chase pigeons around, and he wanted to be a musician, if I've got that story right. And his mum plunked a turban on his head and sat him in the list of the scholars because she thought that is the right thing for him. We have to have a vision for ourselves, and then that will enable us to help our children develop a goal and a vision for themselves as well. It's not that we sit there and say we want them to be X, Y, and Z. And I think we tend to make that mistake sometimes. And that's why we find that when the children grow up and they're in their 20s, they have that freedom. They can easily turn around and say to their parents, like, I've done everything you've wanted. Everything I've been doing it for you. Now I want to do something for me. So our role, once we are sorted, we've discovered ourselves, we know our identity, we know our values, our beliefs, what we know of the values and beliefs that we want to pass on to our children. We start role modeling them. We have a vision for ourselves, and I'm sure everyone's ultimate vision is to go to Jannat al-Firdaus. And we have to guide our children in that way and manner. Everything they do in life, we want to guide them that, and it leads them to Jannat al-Firdaus. But we don't want to impose. What I said there might be a bit difficult. Some of you might disagree, but I really think that's what keeps everything going, because you're engaging them, you're nurturing them, you're guiding them, and saying these are your options in life. It's better than someone breathing down your throat. And I'm saying this because of the way the society is going. That's just how it is. And I'm sure in a few years' time, it would also change. Another thing quickly that I wanted to allude to, and again, more of this, plenty of this is in the course that I'll be doing, inshallah, later on this month, is discipline and setting boundaries. We shouldn't be, for me, my values are being fair, just, loving, and honest, and trusting. Those are the values that I cherish. Those are the ones that work for me, and I know they do. And I'd love my children to have those. So I'll impart those to them. I explain them to them. If they don't want, they can choose something else that is of more value to them. I love my children to be generous as well. Because the other day, my son, I booked him a cab because we were going to a family retreat and there was no trains. There was no cabs from the train station. And he called me and he said to me, Mom, you've done something really great today. And he said, you don't know what you've done. Then I said, what have I done? He said, I'll tell you later. And what happened is I ordered him a cab. He's the one person. He was at the station. A family turned up. They didn't know what to do. And they were a family of 7. Then he said to me, this 7-seater just pulled up. And he said to them, look, all of you just jump in and let's go. And they said, are you really serious? He goes, yes. But I'm saying if he hasn't been taught that way or nurtured that way, that we should help our fellow Muslims or help anybody, he would not do that. And he felt quite proud of himself. Although he attributed it to me, I said, it's not me. I said, it is Allah, because Allah saw that these people wanted, they were coming to an event. They came for the sake of Allah and they will be stuck. Otherwise, why would Allah make them send such a big bus? That is just my interpretation of the event. Another thing with our children, they love arguing a lot. And we seem to jump in. I call this the helicopter parent. We seem to jump in all the time. I think we have to save the moment. If a child is doing something and it's struggling, let the child struggle a bit and try and figure it out themselves. But we don't do that. We just jump in all the time. I think, oh, they can't do it. It's a bit difficult. A child falls over, we jump in. Oh, they must not do this. They must not graze themselves. Let them just, explore a bit, discover life a bit. Because when they grow up, how are they supposed to sort themselves out? Now, when they're arguing, they come to me, they present whatever the matter is. And I say to them, can you go away and sort it and come back with a solution? They don't like that because that means then I have to speak to each other. So they go off sometimes and they begin to sort it out. And when they start coming to you, they go, I know you were going to say that. But you find out that they don't argue that much anymore. And they begin to resolve things, conflicts, issues between themselves. That is a life skill and a very, very valuable life skill that we're teaching our children. Because when they go out to the workplace, when they're out in the community, they will be having these conflicts with people. It will happen. But they will know how to resolve it in a nice manner. We can all agree or disagree, but we do it in a nice manner. And this is one of the ways of dealing with it. Sibling rivalry seems to be a big thing. We think it's a bad thing. It isn't bad. People have been doing it for years and it's going to carry on. We as parents just need to guide the children and channel it into the right, channel their energy into the right way, I would say. I've got something that I call the Tawbah bench, the repentance bench. So if you can find a big bench or a settee or a big box, once they're arguing, put them both on it and tell them to find a way to sort their issue. You would find that they don't like doing these things. And they will find a way to resolve it and they will find a way to argue less. I really love the Tawbah bench. And if we're going to issue consequences for the children, can we just make sure it's relevant to what they've done? And it's not as an act of punishment. It is, we are doing this, so we are teaching them life skills, moral upbringing, how they can handle themselves in this society. Yusuf alayhi salam, the tafsir says he was probably about the age of, I don't know, 10, less than that, when he got thrown in the well. He knew his identity, he knew his lineage. I'm not going to go into that, but it's a beautiful story. If you haven't read it, read it. If you've got teenagers, the best surah you can read is the advice in Surah Luqman that he gave to his son. That is, that is so profound and is the best thing you can give to your teenagers. Because some people say to me, there's nothing in the Quran, there's plenty. And there's one that I'll quickly say, is about Anabi Nuh alayhi salam. Because sometimes we think we've done everything possible as a parent and still these children are not listening. Yeah, they're probably not, but you've done everything possible and Allah sees what you've done. But we pray that our children turn out good. But sometimes if things go the way we do not want them to go, just remember Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. He did everything and his children still never believed in what he believed in. So don't think you're the first person it's happening to if you're in that situation. So be authentic, show a lot of integrity in what you do, and then your child will respect and trust you. That is very, very crucial. Don't teach your children to lie. Even at home, when you are talking to them, can we move away from labeling our children? Because we label them a lot. If you tell a child you're too lazy, the child will start acting lazy and think, well, mom says I'm lazy anyway, I might as well just be it. We should move away from labeling. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier on, separating the child away from the behavior. We will say to the child, I love you dearly. What I'm not pleased with is this behavior you're exhibiting, and let's find ways of sorting this behavior, and then just point them in the right direction of how to get it right. Because we must never take the right of getting things wrong away from the child. This is what one of my sheikhs said, and I really think it is profound. Don't take the right of the child to get things wrong away from them, because that's how they learn. That's how we learn. We learn from mistakes. They say there's no failure, there's only feedback. So when something happens, if you don't give them time to think, give them the space to step away. Even if they do anything wrong to their sibling, if they hit their sibling, take a toy from their sibling they don't want to share, tell them the importance of sharing. When you tell them the importance of sharing, tell them to go away and think about it. And again, it depends on their age. Just, pitch it at the right level. And you would find out more than enough, they will go away and they come back and say, I thought about it. I'm really, really sorry. I did that with my nephew the other day. He was so upset with his sister, threw a ball at his sister. And I said, we spoke to him. Then a few minutes later, I saw him writing on the window that I'm really sorry. He sent that to his sister. So they will. And this is how they begin to, develop life skills. And this is how they begin to relate to people when we are not there. Another thing that we should be doing as moms is the relationship we have with our own parents. Because we know, the Sadaqah Jariyah, when we've gone, and, and where we come from, we always say that may our children outlive us. Is that our children, we want them to pray for us. We want them to remember us in dua when we've gone. We want them to do sadaqah on our behalf when we've gone. Because we say that this sadaqah is the food of the dead. Because that's the only thing that's going to come to us in the grave. And this is what carries on. So for us to carry on that legacy, if we want it to happen, we need to start doing that with our own parents. If my children don't see me ringing my parents, asking after my parents' welfare, probably when we finish dua, sit down, make dua. Let's say to the children, let's make dua for grandma, grandpa. We're not doing any of that. What is the likelihood that they will do that for us? And this is sometimes, when they say in school, show and tell. We have to show them, tell them how to do it. And this is, and I think that is another thing that always gets left by the wayside. And we get upset when we get a bit older, because I see lots of people saying that my children have forgotten about me. But if it's a habit that we've cultivated in our children and they've seen us doing it, inshallah, they will do the same for us. Um, Another thing I'll just say quickly, just a couple of more things, inshallah, is that always check in with your kids. You need to know that whatever you are modeling, whatever it is for you, whatever whatever values or whatever you want to impart onto your children, you know what it is. Whatever you're doing, let probably your children might not know, probably they might know, but always I say check in with them. And one way to do this is to ask them, what is one thing that I'm doing that I should stop doing? And one thing that I'm doing, not doing, that you would love me to do. Because by that, you're showing your children that you're not infallible. You're a human being and you do get things wrong. Oh, yes. And something I would love to say, please, when we do get things wrong, let's say to them, apologize and say, I got that wrong. Own up, take responsibility for it. That is a sign of a leader. We take ownership and responsibility for our actions. We do that. We're teaching that to our children. Lots of adults don't take responsibility and ownership for their actions. Apart from us blaming everything on Shaitan, we will blame it on everybody else. We seem to be the only person that's not wrong, but everyone else is in the wrong. Take ownership and responsibility for your action, because that is a wonderful skill to pass on to your child. If I've got it wrong, I say, right, own up. I've got it wrong. I'm sorry. Fine. That's it. And they'll be doing the same as well. I was saying something before I said that. So I was saying, yeah, so check in, ask them something that you're doing that you need to stop doing, and something that they would love you to start doing. Sometimes when it comes back, it is really a bitter pill to swallow, but I'm really sorry, sisters, that's just how it is. But it's, constructive criticism, because it's true. They are our mirrors. We can't see ourselves. We need other people to judge us. Not judge us, but, tell us what we're doing that's wrong in a nice way, and then we can fix it. Sometimes they tell you spend too much time talking to your friends, you spend too much time on the phone, you go out too much, you spend too much time studying, because that would help you adjust your priorities at home as well. And also be a fun mom. I have particularly chosen to be a fun mom, and this is because of what happened to me so many years back. I really, really would like that when I'm gone, if my children ever remember me, that even if they're about to cry, that they would always, their face would break out into this big grin. And why would it? Because I do lots of fun things with them. My children will tell I do lots of crazy things. But I do that to just, create that, because that's what I want when they're gone, to remember me as that type of a mom that always brings a smile to their face. So whatever it is for you, start creating that and cultivating that in your children. I call these little kids stress busters. Little children are stress busters, unless you just don't want to relate to them. So sometimes when you have issues, just talking to them, finding out what's going on. Honest, you just start the conversation and they go, right, oh, auntie's interested in me, mom's interested in me, and that's it. You set them off. And they just really, the kids are just lovely. I love them anyway. So, and celebrate success. Because I used to say, I never could pick my children up from school. And my children used to say, we will, because I used to take them to breakfast club in the morning, and I picked them up like 6 in the evening. And they also look forward to the day that I would pick them up. I'll be at the school gates and I'll pick them up like all other children used to get picked up. If the day I ever did that was probably if I'm on holiday, and that was a huge privilege for them. So for us, if that happened, we will celebrate. That's a successful day for me, that I was able to pick my children up. For some people, even if you're able to cook a warm meal, a hot meal for your child in a week or so, because of the demands of society today, that is success. Success for you is different from me. And another thing is, we should never this is what I learned from my mom, never set your watch by someone else's. So set your time by someone else's watch. And what they mean is, that we keep looking at other people and think, I want to keep up with them. You keep up with the Suleimans next door. You want to keep up with that person. And then you forget about it all. You just forget about you, because all you're trying to do is cope, be someone else. You will get overwhelmed. You're going to get frustrated, and that will be it. Even if other people are competing with you, that's their problem. You've got your own values. You've got your own beliefs. You've got your own priorities that you're working towards. You've got your own vision that you would love to achieve. And just don't, copy other people. It's not good. And it's not good for our children either. So even if you develop a vision, you can develop a 5-year plan, develop things with your children, tell them that we all want to go to Jannah. And we should just do as much as we can to encourage our children in order for us to leave a legacy behind. I think I said enough there because I'm just conscious of the time and the people who are, we need to go for Salah here as well. But just to briefly conclude, like I said before, I forgot to tell you about having me time. Sorry, I was going to say that because this is something we don't have as well. Because we spend lots and lots of time cooking, working, doing everything for everybody else. And we just have no time for ourselves. We need to be doing this, even if it's reading a book for 5 minutes, even if it's just taking a walk, if it's going to the gym, whatever floats your boat. You know, if it's reading the Quran, if it's just shutting your eyes for 5 minutes. For me, I have this thing, you know, which I would have shared with quite a lot of people already, but I have this closed shop approach. And when I say I've closed shop, I might just say to my kids, like, for the next hour, I'm not going to speak to anybody. I just want to be quiet. Because sometimes, you know, you're having a bad day and you just want to be quiet because you don't want to upset everybody else. And you just don't. So you just want to just sit there, just think it through. So when they come to me, I'm sitting there staring at them and I won't even speak. If they're speaking to me, I won't answer. I just stare at them. And they'll go, oh, yeah, she's closed. They check the time and think, oh, yeah, we'll come back later. And what that does is it diffuses the situation. Nobody's upset. And we just make a joke out of it. Most of the time when I'm serious, my kids laugh at me, but they know I'm serious. But it just gives you time to recharge your batteries, time to rest your brain, time to rejuvenate, plan your priorities around your household. And I always say, for a mom, and this is, I'll conclude on this point, we should start our day the night before the morning after. And what I mean by this is sometimes when everybody's, and it depends whether you're a morning person or a late person. If you plan everything that you need to do the next day, even with your children, sometimes get them to, you know, get the uniforms ready, their school bags by the door, everything they need by the door, homework's done. In the morning, you're probably just spending your time doing your salat with them, having, a halakha of some sort where you're just telling them about seerah, or it could be a verse of the Quran that you're sharing, but you've got time to do that. You've even got time to have breakfast. Even got time to joke. And you're not stressed up. You're not doing everything in the morning. You're not frustrated. Some people have to get dinner ready in the morning. But if you've planned all of that the night before, you would have less to do in the morning. And I'm going to conclude on that because I know I have said a lot. And like I said, I'm really conscious of time. And I'd like to apologize for what happened at the start. Well, I don't know what happened, but that is the qadar of Allah. That's how Allah planned it. All right, but alhamdulillah, I was able to deliver the webinar. And inshallah, I hope one way or the other, I've been able to benefit you. So in the next 2 days, I'll be sending you a link to a course that I will be doing about mastering motherhood. And it's going to be over 5 weeks because there's so much to cover. So I'll be doing it over 5 weeks, but I'll be sending you a link, inshallah, for everybody that's on the webinar. So I'm only going to open it for 2 days for everyone that's been on the webinar, and I'll give it to you at a very, very, very reduced rate. There's 5 modules. I've emailed those before, but I will email that again later because I don't want to take any more time. It will be 1 module a week, and I will be opening up a monthly coaching forum for I'm only going to do it for about 30 people. So the first 30 people that do that, I'm going to start off doing it with just 30 people. And this is where a monthly forum where we can just meet, discuss issues that are going on and share our experiences. I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing what I know with you. And I'm sure there's lots that you would love to share with me and other moms as well, because we can all learn from each other. One thing that I quickly need to say this, that I've always wanted is, I've always said to people, is there anyone that can tell me how I can get my kids to clean their room? Do you know how you just can't get kids to tidy their room? And I've asked around, spoken to lots of parenting experts, and what they tell me is, we don't know either. But the answer that people have, one logical answer was that is their environment. That's what they have control over. That's the environment they can influence. So they just do whatever they want to do in it. And I leave them to it. But we were at a cause a couple of weeks ago, and the sheikh was talking about, we were talking about the Dajjal, Shaitan, and the jinns and that. And he was describing the jinns and how, you know, where they live and all that. And I just saw my daughter write on her wrist, clean room. And I started laughing, you know, and I noticed, this is why you laugh. And I said, if this is what it takes for her to clean the room, then alhamdulillah. And I would love to thank that sheikh for saying that. So that prompted her, and that's something that worked for her. And again, it's always nice to take our children to these talks, because there might be something that might be said that you've been repeating and they've not listened to, and that could be a light bulb moment for them. Anyway, going back to what I'll be delivering, I'll be doing a monthly newsletter. There's going to be a weekly tip as well. So there's lots and lots of stuff bundled up into this package. I'll also have a closed Facebook page again. And this again is just for mothers, whether you're a single mom, you're married, it doesn't matter, provided you're a mom. I'm not excluding anybody, only the brothers I'm excluding. And if you're a mom to be, you're more than welcome to join in. And also there will be a special gift that I'll give you once you've been with me for a month, but I won't tell you what that is, but I'll give that out later as well, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, I've come to the end of the webinar, and I really thank you very, very, very much, and may Allah reward you for giving me what is really precious to you, which is your time, sparing that time to listen to me. And I really hope I've been able to serve you one way or the other, and I've also been able to benefit you in a way. And sisters, let us be mothers who wake up to their children and not for their children. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, that we are vibrant, we are awake, we're ready to go, the children are happy. It's not that we're waking up like, oh my God, I've got to do this again. I've got to do that. No, that is what I mean when I'm saying we're waking up for. What we're waking up to, we're ready to go. And may Allah make this task of motherhood easy for all of us, and may He grant us all Jannah for results. Jazakallah khair. Does anyone want to ask me any quick questions? I'm going to see, probably if we can spare 5 minutes. Are there any questions? Okay, if there aren't any, I'll be signing off now because I can't think. Okay, I'll sign off now. And again, Jazakallah khair to everyone. And may Allah reward you all abundantly. Assalamu alaikum.